Now, no list in international cricket of the best batsmen of all time can ever be complete without the name Isaac Vivian Alexander Richards on it. The man who redefined classy power play batting, the one and only Sir Viv Richards, joins us today. Sir Viv, thanks so much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure having you here. And welcome back to India.
Thank you so much.
Again.
It's a pleasure for me also.
Now, since we're talking about India, and this is a country that you have a very special connection with, Sir Viv, the Indian cricket team currently is going through a transition phase under Virat Kohli's captaincy. What do you make of this current team?
Well, to be fair, one's got to also remember that the guy who he would have succeeded would have been very, very successful in what he achieved. One of your more successful captains. And sometimes, folks, you're going to immediately want to see results, but sometimes it never happens that way. I guess you got to give Virat time, especially you're going to have new personnel on board. And you just have to be a little bit patient at times with such, because it's not all the time that because you would have had success with Dhoni, that you expect whoever follows, you're going to have that same success. There will be hiccups, and I guess that's where he'll be tested.
Right, we'll of course talk about Virat a little bit more in detail in just a bit. But before that, the Indian cricket team currently suffered what was a shock defeat really to Sri Lanka after dominating 2.5 days of that 4-day test match in Galle, and then the Lankans came back strongly and won that test. Do you see India bouncing back hard and perhaps going on to win their first test series in Sri Lanka in 22 years? Is that possible, you think?
What I think is the more important factors that we would have seen in that test match itself that was played recently in Galle is that test match cricket, which I've always felt is the so-called caviar of the game itself. And you would have seen exactly what would have taken place with India being on top for maybe 3 days. And then the last couple of days, certainly it belonged to the Sri Lankans. But this is all part of the sport, and it goes to show you that you've got to make sure that you see out the full 5 days. It isn't about maybe 3 days and how much success you would have had within those days itself. But throughout the match itself, it does suggest that there's a few things wanting. And one of the things that surprised me, with 170-odd runs to get in the last innings, and knowing, and I have, in some degree, I can give evidence to the facts, knowing that India and the Indian batsmen are some of the best players of spin bowling. They were certainly found wanting in that particular last innings. And
was that surprising for you?
It must, yeah, it did surprise me, because I felt, even though it looked a modest total, it looked pretty hard in terms of the way in which they finished in the end.
So do you think that is going to be one of the biggest challenges for this Indian team going forward? Spin is something traditionally that India has always played well. Spinners, something that India has always traditionally produced. Now we're not really producing that many spinners, and our batsmen seem to be struggling against spin as well.
Well, you've got to find that particular format, because what I think would be lost to cricket itself, and especially all the legendary stuff that we would have heard of. I've always felt, maybe from the time that I was playing, that Sonny Gavaskar would have been the godfather of batsmanship. Then we saw Sachin and all the other wonderful batsmen that you would have produced over the years. You have the Rahul Dravids and the Ganggulis and the Lachman and things like that. What I think it would be sad is the fact that we see a lot of T20, even though I guess it's been the so-called savior of the game itself, in terms of the personnel that it brings on board and the money that the guys earning. There's no problem with that. But what I think we could be losing out on is the fact the Sachins and all these great batsmen, what they would have achieved in the past, that people may just start remembering the guys who would be part of the T20 squad. And I think we've got to put our minds together in terms of how well we can notify that we have a balance. And a balance, in my opinion, would be that all three can basically support each other.
Right. Also, so since we spoke about Virat Kohli and about how he took over captaincy from MS Dhoni, personally, which school of captaincy do you prefer more? Because Virat is the more outspoken, more aggressive captain on the field. Dhoni was much more calm and subdued and cool. Which style would you personally more prefer?
You can never forget maybe Dhoni's success. I felt Dhoni would have come a long way in the way in which he would have handled his team, and everyone's got their own style. And Virat, from what I would have seen from the other side of the fence, he has this passion for aggression. And nothing's wrong with that. I guess what I think was quite important and vital to the Indian cause in Australia is a pity that the Indian team didn't back him the way he batted. Because I think he copped a lot. He copped a lot in terms of the verbal abuse and things like that you get every now and again that you compete. And for the way in which he came out towards the end, I felt he came out smelling sweet, because he allowed his bat to do the talking. And it's just a pity that India didn't quite respond to the way he batted. But I've always liked his style. I've always felt that there's nothing wrong with aggression, and especially when you have guys, you know, who are coming at you on a regular basis with all this verbal stuff. Why not give it back if you have the package? And when I say the package, I mean the cricketing package.
And then are you saying, Sir Viv, in a way that the Indian team needs to back their now very aggressive captain as well, because he's also a very good batsman and he makes his bat do a lot of the talking as well. But do you feel that sometimes the team overall isn't managing to back Virat, the aggressive captain and batsman?
Well, we've only seen this for a few matches. As I said earlier, everyone who comes into a new position, and especially with the pressures of being captain, one's got to give him some time. I guess when you have a leader who is aggressive as he is, I hope he doesn't lose that, because sometimes when you become captain, you sometimes go into your shell thinking, well, I've got to be a little bit more responsible and things like that. But he can still get it done with his aggression, because Ricky Ponting, I think, had that same sort of aggression when he was captain. He had result as captain. So I'm hoping that Virat doesn't lose that aggression where his batsmanship is concerned, which I think would be part of all leading from the front with his style.
Talking about Virat's batting, do you see shades of yourself perhaps in Virat sometimes?
I see a lot of Virat, really. You know, no, but it's nice to get that sort of comparison. But I just love what the guy brings to the table. He's not afraid to back away. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but his heart, to me, suggests that he's just as large as anyone who comes at him. And I believe that he's very special to India. And if he gets the support, hopefully from selectors and everyone, you know, who would have been part of the team itself. And I know for some reason, Ravi Sastry has been a good friend of mine for years. I guess Ravi would like that sort of style. And if Ravi, as director of the Indian cricket team and all the stuff that it's made of, can be in his ears on a regular basis, do not change your style. You can still be you can be successful still with that sort of aggression. And I hope he doesn't lose that. If he loses that, I think we lose quite a lot of Virat Kohli.
Yeah, because he is, after all, the future of Indian cricket.
That's right.
What's your take, Sir Viv, on the DRS, or the decision review system? India is the only cricketing nation which hasn't embraced it yet. Do you think the BCCI should perhaps change their stance on it?
Well, I tell you something. If it was in play and you guys basically would have endorsed it in Galle, I guess you would have won that match. I'm not going to say anymore, but just what I would have seen, there was a few little dicey decisions which didn't go India way. And if you had the technology, I guess we'd have seen a much different match itself.
Right. Let's talk about the West Indian tour pullout of 2014. How much would you say that hurt relationships between Indian and West Indian cricket, or did it hurt it at all?
Well, I hope that the folks who got involved and what they stood for at that particular time, that it did hurt, because I was hurt. I've always felt that when you leave your yard and wherever you go to play, and especially when you're playing in someone else's backyard, and knowing how passionate the Indians are when it comes to cricket, I felt it was insult to your public and all the fans, you know, who would have wanted to see what the West Indies were made of. That wasn't to be. And, you know, we saw that same argument over and over again about the money factor. But I felt whilst here, you had us to try and get the job done. And whatever little issues that you had, you should have actually sorted that out a little earlier. Or say, hey, let me bite the bullet here. let us complete what we came here to do and not quit, and then we'll take up our issues with the board. But I felt pretty ashamed. I felt for all the guys, you know, who would have helped West Indies cricket to have bring it to such prominence. Yeah. They were also hurt. I've spoken to a lot of guys, the Michael Holdings, who I think he was on this particular tour himself. There was a lot of guys who felt ashamed. But I'm just hoping that, and I'm making this particular plea now, to all the folks who may matter where Indian cricket is concerned, and for the decision that was made by some individuals who I felt just wasn't thinking as straight as they should, that please forgive us. Please forgive us. You know, we are much better than that, and I'm just hoping that we would have learned our lessons and have a fair idea how much people we would have hurt also in the process, that we may get a little slap on the wrist, and that we may come again. And if I had anything to do with it, I'll make sure that for some reason in the future that we have a little bit more respect where these matters are concerned.
All right, one final question, sir, and I have to talk about this, and this is something I'm sure will bring a good smile to your face.
Wow.
This video that you've done called Smoking Joe with John Farris.
Yep.
How exciting was it shooting for it, and how exciting was it for you to see the final product?
Well, first of all, I've always been a fan of InXS, which was a rock band from Australia. From my trips to Australia, I met John Farris, who is a drummer, and having spoken to him, he said to me at the time that he liked my voice and we could go into the studio and do something. And I just felt he was taking the mick. But I did try it. I said, why not? You know, we just did it for some fun. And he's got this magnificent studio where he lives in Sydney. Went into the studio, and it's amazing when the effect that you get inside the studio. I can imagine how these artists and all these folks would have felt that what was bouncing off the studio wall, I started to enjoy. You know, what looked to me like, wow, this was going to be hard. And then got in there and liked what I heard, and we just took it from there. And what you would have heard, that's the finished product. And in a sense, I'm a little bit over myself in a sense, the way I felt about it. You know, I said, wow, okay, you sound rather cool, Viv. You know, Viv, folks would have said things like you sound like Barry White or Isaac Hayes and folks like that. And to be given that sort of a credit, I'm just over the moon anyway with the result that we would have had coming out of that studio.
Which was your favorite line in that video? If you could say that for us.
Let me say the favorite line. Let me try and remember. I'm a recording artist. You know, I do not do stuff live. I would say that yeah, man, that little bit inside there, which is sort of a Caribbean-ish. It's like a rocket ship. Little things like that. You know, little stuff. And my name is Isaac, Vivian Alexander Richards, little things like that. I was proud in a sense, as I said, what studios can do for you. And I was quite pleased with the results in the end.
Well, it's a fantastic video, Sir Viv. Almost like the career and the life that you had. Absolutely fantastic. And thank you so much.
Do what you can do in order to pump it up, you know, because at first I never felt that we would get this serious. But then giving you some answers about it itself, let us pump it up a little more.
Absolutely.
Good man.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for talking to us.
And thank you too.
Thank you.